Hello and welcome to the All About Ability podcast. This podcast is sponsored by Kyle Financial and Strathclyde House Buyers. Kyle Financial are proud supporters of local communities and specialise in helping you protect what matters most. For your family, your lifestyle and even your income, they have it covered. Kyle Financial are now offering free wills, regardless of whether or not you need any other service. Go check them out on their website, www.kyle-financial.co.uk, or check them out on Facebook, Twitter or even Instagram. Strathclyde House Buyers are a local property solutions company who specialise in helping people sell their property quickly with no fees. If you or anyone you know are looking for a fast, stress-free sale, check them out on their website, www.strathclydehousebuyers.com, on Facebook or on Instagram. Tony, it's great to have you here. This is me turning on my professional voice now. We'll start recording. But how have you been doing?
I'm good. It's been really, really difficult for everybody. So I'm of the mind that you just get up and deal with it in the morning, and just see what happens. But I'm not overly worried about it. It's been really, really frustrating, and it has been for you and everybody else. But listen, the world's still spinning and we're still here, so I don't think it gets much better than that.
Well, that's a very good way of putting it, very positive, a bit more positive than me anyway, because it's like, I think the pandemic definitely lasted longer than we thought it would, for sure, and in terms of the actual foundation, Celtic Foundation, so you've been there for a long time. Like, how did you actually get involved in all this, and what made you stay for so long?
I think what made me stay for so long is nobody else would employ me. No, listen, it's a great place to be. I've been at Celtic for a long, long time. I worked in media for a long, long time. And I took this on in 2013. And at the time, it was two separate things, Kieran. It was a charity fund that Fergus had set up in the mid-1990s that I had kind of been involved with in my other job. And then a foundation department that the club had set up about 2006, 2007. And that did a wee bit of community engagement. It did a bit of, kids football and various other things. So in 2013, we decided to put those two things together. And that's effectively how Celtic FC Foundation came into being. And in the main, we stopped writing cheques for other charities. We went back to that through COVID, but in the main we stopped writing cheques for other charities, and we set ourselves an annual target to raise funds and deliver our own projects in key areas and around things that were important to us or we felt were important to people within our communities.
Yeah, I mean, see, when you look at the actual, during the pandemic, I was reading about what you've been doing and how you started a fund to make up for the lack of events and things like that. So That was the thing that I was raising money for doing my challenge before, and I was really curious as to how it all comes about in terms of you've delivered meals to the homeless and done all this amazing things. But see, with COVID, how difficult was that to navigate?
It was exceptionally challenging, but we got a lot of support. So we started in March 2020. We put in £250,000 from Celtic FC Foundation reserves, effectively, and that kick-started it. And we went for a period of months without asking anybody for any money because everybody's living through a pandemic, right? So it's really, really difficult.
Yeah.
And then we launched an appeal part of the Football for Good Fund, where we went and asked individuals, corporate organisations, our regular supporters, and we rely heavily on the initiative from the type of thing that you did for us, which is go and create a challenge effectively and knock your pan in and raise huge sums of money. So we're very, very grateful to you for that and to others who have done the same for us. In terms of navigating, it was quite, it was a series of just examining the processes for us. We identified partners that we had relationships with. So when I say to you that we tried to stop writing cheques for other charities, there's an annual exception. We run a Christmas appeal, and we've got partner organisations who we fund so that they can do what they need to do, like provide meals for people at Christmas or provide gifts for kids and families who don't who won't get gifts. So we went back to them and says, what is the need within your community, and how can we help? So they went back and said, well, the need is that there are more people turning up to food banks, for example, and we've got a food bank partnership with the Church of Scotland. So there's more people turning up to food banks and getting turned away because they don't have the right paperwork. So how can we overcome that? So we decided that we would provide the food, and people who needed it could go and get the food, or we would deliver it to them if they were recovering from COVID. So those are the types of things that we did. I think we've ended up with 85 partners, mainly in Glasgow, mainly in the north and east of Glasgow, which is our home and where life's very different. I'm from the east end of Glasgow, but not just in Glasgow. So we do stuff in Edinburgh, we did stuff in Oban, in Newcastle. We have a lot of activity every day in normal times in London, so we did a lot of stuff in London, and we've got a lot of activity in New York as well. So we partnered up with two organisations in New York, and organisations that look after children who are vulnerable, and an organisation who look after homeless people in New York. And if you've ever been, you'll know that it's a city that's not short of the homeless community, despite its wealth. So those are the types of things that we did. We're now into month 15 or 16. We've raised through your efforts and other people's efforts about £1.3 million, and we'll probably put some more money in to take us up to the end of the calendar year, to take us to the end of 2021. And hopefully, starting in July, we can get back to delivering our own projects. So we've started some of those already, and I can talk about those if you like. But hopefully by the end of the year, we'll have come through the worst of COVID. We'll be back to whatever normal looks like at that point, and we can, reduce or rewind a wee bit on the Football for Good Fund. That's a really, really long answer, but you did ask me a complicated question. Fair
enough, I was expecting it. No, it's really amazing from my point of view to know that that's where the money's going to, and it's like, because people have asked me, like, where does the money go in the foundation? I think people just think, are you put money to people all his wages with this, you know what I mean?
So I think the two things are very disconnected, actually. So the Football for Good Fund was three main headlines. It was food, fuel. So there's no point in providing a family with food if they don't have the fuel to cook it. So food, fuel, and then we invested in a couple of mental health projects as well, because that's coming down the track. The economy is going to take a massive hit. Inevitably, people will lose their jobs, and people's mental health we're already seeing that's affected. The club are the biggest single contributor to Celtic FC Foundation. So, for example, I'm employed by the club. I'm not employed by the foundation, and I'm a free resource to the foundation. So the foundation, for me to work there, doesn't cost the foundation anything. And the club provide a whole series of things for us. They provide offices at Celtic Park, they provide food, they provide kit, they provide a whole series of things. And the club's partners do likewise. So a lot of the club's big sponsors contribute significantly to Celtic FC Foundation as well. So it's not about putting money back into the football club. It's the football club saying, we recognise that there's a need for people who may or may not support Celtic. It's broadly irrelevant. And how can we help them? So we'll do it through this charity vehicle called Celtic FC Foundation.
Yeah. No, I just thought it would be a confusing me, because I feel like people, they don't quite understand how separate it is and how much the foundation does stay connected to the roots of the club. I guess that's what...
I mean, that's the real motivation for us, is that it's not our participation in this third sector space is not manufactured. It's, to use your phrase, it takes us back to our very roots. It's why the football club was formed in 1887, was to address a need within the local community. And if you get to 2020, 2021, that need's still there. It's been heightened because of COVID, but it's still there all the time. So we try and raise a sum of money in normal times £2-3 million a year if we're lucky, and deliver our own projects that's going to help people step out of poverty. So alleviating poverty is the number one priority for Celtic FC Foundation, and it's not about just providing food, because that's got a short-term result. You provide food for 2 or 3 days, and then 2 or 3 days later people are back again. So what we try and do normally is raise a sum of money, £2 million, £3 million a year if we're on our game and we get a lot of support. And we try and deliver our own projects within key areas, or we co-deliver them with partners that we've worked with and that we trust. And, providing food's got a short-term benefit. You provide food for a family for 2 or 3 days and it helps them for 2 or 3 days. So we try and find sustainable ways to help people, and the best way that we've identified for that is employability projects. We run employability projects that help people find work and they can go and provide their own food. That's really the key. So that's priority number one, is alleviating poverty. And then the second's about equality. Celtic, as you know, was a football club that was open to all when it was formed at the end of the 19th century, and that's still our position, that whether it's people who live with a disability, who've got dementia, who've Down syndrome, autism, complex physical disabilities. We partner with Scottish Disability Sport, for example. We want to include people who would otherwise be excluded. So there's a lot of other stuff that we do, Kieran, but those are the two sort of main headlines.
It makes you feel proud to be a Celtic fan like that, to be fair. But what I found really interesting about it was you made a really good point there where you were talking about the fact that whether you support Celtic or not, it's irrelevant to the cause of what you're doing now. And I feel like Glasgow's such a divided city, as you know, and it's one of those things where causes like this is important for, when I was doing the challenge, a lot of Rangers fans reached out and helped with, raising money, and were very supportive and helping me put awareness out there. And I think that's one of the things that really, as much as there's a lot of, the rivalry is big and it's very intense, there's a lot of people that can look at the benefit of helping people, and that's what the Celtic Foundation's all about. Yeah,
and I think the good thing for us is that we're not in competition. We're not, it's not like supermarkets. It's not like Asda competing with Tesco. We're not competing with any other charity organisation. The people who deliver our projects at Celtic FC Foundation, one of the first things that they look for is that there's not duplication, so that we're not going to be going and doing something that somebody's already doing within that area, because that's pointless, right? Mm-hmm. So we need to make sure that there's no duplication, and then if we can identify the need, if we can assess or analyse what we think the benefit's going to be, and if we can go and raise the funds, whether we get the funds from government or the local authority or corporates or individual supporters, or we get the funds by having a match or a dinner or whatever it is, I sponsored something, we had a golf day last weekend, then we go and deliver that project, and then we'll continually monitor and evaluate the outcomes to make sure that it's doing what we thought it was going to do before we started. And if it's not, we'll adapt it. And if it's still not, then we'll scrap it and we'll go and do something else. So that's the process that we work through.
I mean, it seems very there's a lot to it, clearly. And how many people do you actually have together working on all this?
So I've got broadly 3 people who are the managers. Somebody who's the head of outcomes. That's the most important thing for us, is not our ability to go and raise money, but what we do with the money. So the head of outcomes decides and that helps us deliver those projects. And there's a team within that outcomes department. We've got a head of income, clearly, because we need to raise funds. So that person decides where we're going to fundraise and how we're going to do it and what we're going to tie that fundraising into. So we need to join it up with the outcomes. And then I've got another senior manager who does the bit in the middle, which is the unglamorous hard bit, which is work, which is the paperwork and the finance and the admin and that type of stuff. There's about 12 full-time people across the entire foundation. And then we employ people specifically because we've got funding for that employment. So we run an employability project, for example. which is aimed at 16 to 24-year-olds, predominantly male, but not exclusively. So we might meet them in prison, and then we bring them to Celtic Park for 10 or 12 weeks, and those young people have been marginalised. They've maybe got an addiction or a problem with numeracy and literacy. They've probably been in prison, and we try and help them into employment. So that's funded through proceeds of crime. So the money that the government agency Cashback for Communities provide for us, we can go and employ people specifically to work in that area. So we employ a trauma counsellor, for example, because a lot of these young people have experienced real trauma in their life, and that's holding them back in many ways. So we try and get to the root of the problem with them, and our job really is to keep them out of prison and help them into employment.
What's really amazing about that is none of it's a temporary solution. It's all processed in a way that you can make it where you're changing that person's life, which is,
That's the objective for me. But what we've experienced in the last 15 or 16 months through COVID is very much short-term solutions. Food for a period of time, fuel, whether it's gas or electricity, or switching on, power cards or whatever people have got at home for a period of time. So that's short-term, that's emergency help effectively. But that's people who otherwise, not in all cases, but in a lot of cases, would probably be without food or fuel for that period of time. Yeah. So if we can help, that's what we should do.
How hard was it? Because you obviously had your year sort of planned out, what you were going to do, all the events and stuff, and then all of a sudden, within the space of a month or so, it all drastically changes very quickly.
I think it wasn't any harder for me than it was for you, right?
Yeah.
So, I think we took, in many ways, there was this feeling of everybody's in this together. Everybody's facing the same things, no matter what you do for a living or where you live or how you normally live your life. Everybody's facing the same problem, and we don't know how long it's going to last. So absolutely bizarrely, we got to last summer, the cases dip, they're almost non-existent, and I went on holiday. I went to Spain for a week thinking that's it, it's done. So my wife and our youngest went to Spain for a week thinking we're back to normal now, and we come back. You take precautions, you wear a mask on the plane, you wear a mask, and you had to wear a mask outdoors in Spain in a lot of places actually. But you think you're through the worst of it, and then we're a year down the line, and we're now reading headlines in the papers this morning saying that we could be in this kind of lockdown or these restrictions for another 10 weeks. So it's just waiting for the end to come and knowing when the end, and there's going to be one hell of a party, I think, when the end finally comes.
No, definitely, especially when we get back in the Celtic Park and stuff like that. It'll be good.
Well, that's really what we've missed. Is having people at the stadium, and that's where it begins and ends for me as a Celtic supporter, is to have people in the games, and the Celtic fans have been great. They've continued to back us. They've bought their season tickets last year. They never got to a single game, but we need to get them back in as quickly as we can. And with the club, to its credit, it's taken a lot of steps. They've led the way in many ways in terms of protecting people and process, and masks and temperature checks, and people being right to be in the ground. So we just need a chance. We just need that these events that are happening at Hampden through the Euros at the moment, and happening across Europe in many ways, happening at Wembley. We need that sooner rather than later, I think,
Definitely. I think everybody, you forget how much of an impact sport has on people, and how when you take it away, it leaves people not very much to look forward to. I think the scenes last night for the Scotland game was good to see everyone back in the stadium and shouting. The result wasn't ideal, but you forget how much of an impact football can have that way.
And even at that, so it's 12,500. I think there was just under 10,000 turned up. I don't know what happened actually, but I think there was just under 10,000 turned up of a capacity of 50,000. So that's 20%, and it was an amazing noise. I mean, I was in the office just watching it on TV, and I watched it with the cashback group actually. And the noise was amazing. Just with just a fifth of the stadium full. So you're dead right. It'd be great to get people back. Well,
as we're talking about football, I've been talking about on this podcast quite a bit about this bit of sport, and specifically wheelchair football. I mean, it's called Powerchair football, right? But I always like calling it wheelchair football because I feel like when you say Powerchair, people are just like, "What's a Powerchair?" You know, so because the difference between, just in case anyone's listening to this, and like, what is he talking about? The difference between a manual wheelchair and a Powerchair is the one I've got is you just use a stick and you go forward, whereas manual chair you're trying to use your arms and But anyway, because I feel that people ask me that all the time. When you're saying Powerchair, what do you mean? what is it you're talking about? So I've just started saying wheelchair football, but the actual government bodies are like, you need to start calling it Powerchair football. This is what it's called. But I feel like that's more of an American term. Anyway, getting sidetracked. I've been talking about this. I've talked about it to various different people. I was talking to Cy Ferry and John Hartson about how we want to get the sport more recognised. Here's some footage of it. So let me just kind of give you a rundown. And people that listen to this podcast will be sick to death of hearing me tell this, right? Do you know what? We keep showing all these clips. Show the clip of me actually scoring the goal. I scored a goal right at the end of this video, right? But we'll show some passing first. But I'm definitely showing you my goal this time, right? When Ty came on, I showed him a clip of me missing a shot, and it was terrible. But this is so the way it works, right? Is you can see a bunch of wheelchairs there, and you're probably thinking, how does this all come together? So it's 4 aside, right? But the thing is that you have certain rules so that it doesn't become for lack of a better word, you know, robot wars type thing. You know what I mean? So you have it set out to where if you look at it, you get a middle player, 2 wide players, and a goalkeeper. And when the attacking player has the ball, only one defensive player can come towards them. So
right.
If 2 players go towards 1 player, it's a 2v1 and a foul. So, and the distance between everybody is 3 meters. So you have to be 3 meters apart, and it avoids. You see the play here. It avoids everybody coming together.
And if it's not 3 meters apart, it's a foul. It's a free kick.
So if I've got the ball like just now, and another player comes towards me, I get a foul because they do it that way because 2 wheelchairs going to 1 wheelchair doesn't. You can't. Well, it's impossible to get past 2 wheelchairs at one time. It's not like regular football where you can nutmeg somebody and drill past a few players. So they have to do that so that you can actually. Essentially, what it does is it encourages people to pass the ball.
Yeah.
That's because you want to showcase the sport more like, you know, mainstream football, and that's how they do it that way. But there's a couple of good goals here, like good team goals. I'm just trying to showcase myself because of my ego, but the guy. This is Scotland and playing a friendly game in Leeds last year. Well, not last year. Start of last year. I forget because it feels like it was years ago. This game, it's the last Scotland game we've played in, but and it was the first time that I got to captain the team, which was an experience.
So do you play in a regular position then? Yeah.
So I'm one of the strikers. So the way it works is basically the middle player is essentially deals with is what gets it going, and then the 2 wide players are the 2 strikers. But the way that it goes, there's also like certain rules that I've not mentioned before. That if you notice, there's a goalkeeper and there's one other guy in the box.
Yeah.
So there's a rule where you can only have you can only have 2 people in the box.
Right.
As long as one of them's. So see that rule I was talking about where you have to be 3 meters apart. It doesn't apply to the goalkeeper and defender.
Right. Okay.
But as long as there's only one defender, if 3 people go, basically what they say is it's a 3 in the box rule. So there's 3 in the box. It's a free kick.
Right. Okay.
For the other team, because so essentially all this stuff is.
And are these high scoring games normally?
Yeah. I mean, depending on. You know, I guess the teams and stuff, but the actual game, because of the rules, because of the way the rules are placed at the top level when the ball's moving, there's generally been a lot of goals, and it's very much fast paced, intense kind of situation. And I feel like I wasn't sure if you'd actually ever seen it.
No, properly. I've seen it before, but I just didn't understand the rules.
Yeah, so I just wanted to kind of go through that a wee bit. I keep one of these days I'm gonna get my goal like that, man. I need to find that. I know, like, it's definitely there, but I keep missing it. Anyway, so I've been talking to all these guys up this, right? And when I was talking to Si, I was saying that one of the things right now you've got Clyde and Tayside, like I've said to Si Ferry, are the two biggest clubs in the game just now. And I've been playing for Clyde since like the first. Well, in terms of Scotland, actually, I'm the only player that's still here from the first session,
right?
Which is mad. Makes me feel quite old. That, like, see, when I think about that, I'm like, how am I still doing this? But what's mad to me is as I've been doing this podcast and it goes on, I start thinking about, well, you know, when I came into it, it had such a big impact on me because I'd never really met anyone in a wheelchair before, and it's strange because I think the way that I used to, you know, see this as a very negative thing, and so actually meeting people in wheelchairs I found it really difficult. I found it challenging I didn't want to be around something that I didn't like. So I didn't like being in a wheelchair, so I didn't like talk to people in wheelchairs. Now, don't get me wrong, for my teammates listening to this, like that was years ago. We're good now, but like the actual, you know, I think it had a very big impact on me on how I basically was able to see the fact that being in a wheelchair wasn't as big a problem as I thought it was, because you get this sort of way where you feel like, am I the only one in the world? As crazy as it sounds when you're growing up and you go to a mainstream school and there isn't anybody around you, you just think, am I the only guy in the world in a wheelchair? You know what I mean? But anyway, I digress. The point is that as I've been talking about this, one thing that's really become apparent to me is the need for this sport to be around for well after me. You know what I mean? I've been doing it for a long time, and it's all based around volunteers.
Yeah.
So when I've been pushing for, as I was talking to Si Ferry about it, I keep dropping his name because people will be like, I'm gonna go and see what he's talking about. But he was like, we're talking about getting the foundations involved, and I was explaining to him reasons why that's maybe not happened before, and certain things about being, you know, I understand that the whole idea of competitiveness wasn't something you wanted to necessarily push on too much because of certain things. When you do one thing, you start doing all these other things, and that's totally, like, I've understood that point of view before, but the trying to think about what I'm actually trying to get to.
No, listen, I think from my point of view, there's a great cliche. I kind of live my life in cliches, actually, but there's a great cliche that says that we can do anything, but we can't do everything.
Yeah.
So we need to decide what we're going to do on our own, what we're going to do in partnership with people, and what we're going to not do, what we're just not able to do. So if we look at what we do on our own, we've run a suite of projects called Ability Counts, are aimed at children and young people who've got Down syndrome or autism, and we deliver that in Glasgow. We haven't delivered it for 15 months. We're planning to get that back July or August. Hopefully we can get that back up and running. We do something similar in Donegal and in Dublin, and we delivered that on our own up until the pandemic, and we'll probably deliver that in partnership with local organisations, which makes the most sense for me now when we restart. And we've got a partnership with Scottish Disability Sport, which we effectively put some money into. We do a wee bit of the football, but that gets delivered throughout the year at 13 centres across Scotland, and that's for children and young people who are want to be involved in competitive sport, and it's a whole series of different sports. And that's the best use of our resources to partner with them, because that's their core competence, that's their expertise. And these days are great for me to attend. They're great because the people are great, and Scottish Disability Sport are just a good organisation, run by really good people. So we need to make a call on what we can do and what we can't do. I had a chat a couple of years ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, from a guy whose son played your sport. I think he might have had a connection with St Mirren. And came and asked us about it, and it wasn't a space that we could get involved in at the time. If we can find a partner, if we can find that it's no duplication, if we can find the funding for it, then we would look at that again. You know?
This is where I come in. Because you're talking about Disability Sport. What's interesting about Disability Sport is they are a brilliant organisation, but in terms of Powerchair football, it doesn't come into their bracket because they generally look for sports that have that are part of the Paralympics and things like that. So Powerchair football isn't part of the Paralympics. I think it will be one day, but it's just a question of classification. The classification for Powerchair football is very varied across Europe and stuff like that, so they've not managed to get into that too much, but that's a whole different kind of topic. In terms of actually, because I've been thinking about this and thinking about the best way to put this, but I think one of the problems was there wasn't really, as the sport's evolved, it's not really been put to these foundations, I don't think, in the necessarily the correct way of why this would be a good thing and how it could be done and all these different, how to work around the actual things you would need to put in place for it. But the thing that I wanted to kind of highlight was, see, when I think about the actual sport, after doing the challenge thing for the foundation, I managed to get part of the kit launch, which was great.
I saw that, actually.
I couldn't believe that. I was like, I thought, because I'm not you, I thought I had a face for radio, so I didn't think I'd be asked for that kind of thing. But so to be part of that was amazing, and it just got me thinking about the fact that we probably, in terms of actually people talking about it, people are starting to talk about it, and it got me thinking, like, see, I've been a Celtic fan my whole life, right? But being in a wheelchair my whole life, there was a lot of football was like the main thing was my whole world, right? So it was the thing that kept me going, and I used to play in goals on my knees, but I ended up getting discriminated against and thrown out of this team, and all these different things happened that were very negative to me and things like that. This sport didn't exist at that point, but you used to go to Celtic Park and you used to be like, imagine I could play for Celtic, you know what I mean? Like it was like, that would be such a great thing to do. And if there was any possibility of that happening, like at that point, I would have totally just been able to, like all these negative things are happening to me, but I can put my energy into playing for Celtic in some capacity. Like that was what would have been my sort of, for lack of a better word, hope of achieving something. So that wasn't there, and the more I do this, the more I realise that it's weird for me to be here, like, and have the chance to actually make that into reality, because it's the case of, see, in terms of football, I feel like it's more than just football, because it's like these people in wheelchairs that go to Celtic Park or go to any football team in the country, it's everybody, every young kid wants the chance to dream about that. Do you know what I mean? And we never had that. I never had that. And so I've been going over my head so many times how to put this to you. So, because it's like you feel like you're speaking for a group of people, and it changes so much, because in terms of actually the societal impact of it, like when I was going to mainstream school, all everybody was ever talking about was, did you see that Celtic game last night? Like, and there would be like everybody knows, right? Everybody knows that the most popular kids in school are the pro youth guys. Do you know? I say, oh, is he going to make it? Is he going to get to play for Celtic or Rangers or whoever it is? And that, I was never part of that conversation, obviously.
I wasn't either, incidentally.
Aye. But, like, the problem with it isn't because I wasn't, so it wasn't in the skill or anything, it was because it wasn't possible, right? And now it feels like we're at a point now where it seems like it could be possible, because I brought up the kit launch because I thought to myself, imagine the impact of seeing, Scott Brown and or whoever, he's gone now. It's weird to imagine him not being there anymore. But, the Celtic men's team, the Celtic women's team, and then somebody in a wheelchair in the Celtic strip saying, here's the Celtic wheelchair football team. And it brings everybody into that conversation. Also saying, because I think when people look at people in wheelchairs, there's the idea that we're less able, and there is a lot of stigma to it. There's a lot of barriers to break down, even although we talk about equality and all these things, it's still very much, in terms of a group, we're still very much been stepped on all over society, and I think having the one thing that connects with people the most is football in this country particularly. Yeah. And I feel like when I was really thinking about the actual bigger picture of it all, not only would it be amazing for a Celtic wheelchair football team, but it actually breaks down all those barriers and gets people talking, and it gives people the chance to dream, the chance to think that that's a possible thing.
My starting point, if I'm honest with you, is to try and find a way to do things, and we don't always get there. I need to be really honest with you. We don't always find a way to do things, but we should look at this again. We should sit down and have a proper look at it and see if we can find a way to do it.
There's a couple of things that I've been working on before this conversation because I looked in it pretty in depth in terms of what would need to happen and what would need to be done, and I think maybe, I talked to some of the association and got everything cleared up with it, because I think one of the concerns, or one of the things we were talking about before was, like you say, how do we make this happen and what is the best way of doing it? So that those are like details that we can maybe talk about like after we actually start recording this. But the actual, I've obviously, that's very personal things I've said there, but the point is that I feel like it would, having been around the sport so long, it's not as difficult as it appears. There's the main kind of things you need behind it. I'd know, like I've set my put in place for this, right, and I've got in the back of my head, so we'll talk about that. But I just wanted to give you the idea of what I feel like, how big an impact this could be, especially because now that I've managed to somehow, people are listening to me talk, which is great, and there seems to be some sort of, I get messages from people being like, after speaking about it with Hudson and Sai and stuff like that, being like, when is this Powerchair football team going to happen? And then as soon as I was part of the kit launch, I was thinking, well, maybe I need to make a move on this. Like, so it's just weird to have you here and be able to just make the case for it and say, like, this is something that I feel like needs to happen, especially because look, the only way for this sport to be sustained over a long period of time is for Celtic and Rangers and different clubs like Celtic, like all the main clubs in the Premiership, to get involved in this, because that, essentially when you look at mainstream football, right, really Celtic and Rangers are what has kept Scottish football in the spotlight for so long. And so when I think about, the way it is right now, it's a great setup with a lot of passionate people, but it's just not going to be sustained, because for it to be sustained, you need more people involved. You need people to care about it, and nobody cares about it more than the dynamic of Celtic and Rangers and all these different teams. I keep mentioning Rangers with Celtic because I feel like, as much as we're not the biggest fans of them, right? Like, I think they're just as important to this equation, because once you get Celtic, you get Rangers, and as I was on my way here, I was thinking about the fact that, like, Celtic obviously is a club that I really care about, and for me personally it would be amazing, but in terms of actually, we always talk about being a club for all and all these different things, and that is very much true from everything you spoke about, but it's actually a chance for Celtic to lead to the front of this and be like, football is a sport for all as well, so it brings everybody back into the picture, and that's something that I wanted to just make the point of saying. This is why I feel like we need to get this going.
Have you ever thought about a career in sales?
See, wait, I'm just taking that as Tony's been sold on this. That's all I'm taking it. But
listen, let's have a proper conversation about it and look at the all the things that are going to help us make a decision.
Okay, brilliant. I mean, like I said, we'll speak about it, but I just wanted to put that out there, because I keep getting asked all this stuff, and it's like, and I mean, who else am I going to put it to other than the guy that runs the whole Celtic Foundation? Do you know what I mean? But we'll move on from that now. I was kind of curious as to what your thoughts were on the new Celtic manager. What you thought about him?
Well, listen. First of all, I'm sorry the way it ended for Neil. Neil, I've worked with Neil for the best part of 20 years at Celtic. He was great to me personally when I was in media, and he was great for the foundation, and he brought a lot of success. So I'm sorry for him. I'm sorry for us as Celtic supporters that the season ended the way it did. For everybody associated with the football club. But we need to move on, you know. And I don't profess to know much about the new guy, but he's got an opinion, which is great. He's a big personality, which is great, and I'm hoping we'll get to meet him over the course of the next week or so. And I'm excited about it because we can't do anything about what happened up until now. We just need to look forward, and we need to build. And I know behind the scenes, the people who make football-related decisions, which are none of my business, incidentally, are working really, really hard to get this right, to get him the support that he needs, to get the right players in, and to get us back to where we want to be and where we've become accustomed of being, which is the dominant team in Scotland over the past decade, and that's where we need to get to. As a Celtic supporter, that's where I want us to get to, and I want us to get there very, very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem like he's got a really big character about him. He seems very strong, and like, you know, it's like you said, it is quite sad because Lennon is a legend, and it seems like the way things, you know, it's just not the way you wanted to play it, and you know, so. But
it's football, right? Yeah. It's what happens in football. It happens to everybody. Ultimately, it happens to everybody, and it's part of the game. You don't need to be happy about it. You don't need to enjoy it in any way, but it happens, and you need to deal with it. And the club have dealt with it by appointing Ange Postecoglou, and he'll come in. He'll get everybody's support. He'll get everybody's backing, and hopefully he'll lead us back. He'll lead us back to success.
Well, people keep talking about how that like nobody really knows who he is, and all this is kind of unknown to some, but it's also, you know, a lot of the best managers we've had have been unknown.
I think if you look back, I was at Celtic for the mid-1990s, and when Wim Jansen came in at the start of season 1997-98, we went to Holland in a pre-season training camp. So he came in, I think he came in the summer. We had pre-season. Season started a wee bit later then. We had 2 weeks in Holland. We played a few pub teams. I think the first game we won 21-0 or something in a public park. And we stayed in this kind of camp for 2 weeks. And I travelled with the team, and it was very different for the 3 years that we'd had with Tommy. I had with Tommy Burns in terms of the culture and how you do things. So, for example, I remember going to, this was this very, very early stages of people having mobile phones. And we went to, and Vim says, we've only got, everybody eats together, whether it's football, backroom staff, media, whoever it is, everybody on the trip for Celtic eats together. My rule is there's no mobile phones at the dinner table. So, and then as he was saying that, Tommy Johnson's phone was ringing, so he was answering the phone. So that he never got off to a great start with the manager. But when Vim came in, people didn't know who he was and who is this guy. And I think one of the newspaper headlines, horrendous headline at the time, because he had been in Japan, like the new guy was in Japan, and I think the headline was the second worst thing to hit Nagasaki. Wim Jansen was a horrible, horrible headline. And he came on, he had his own idea about how to play football. He brought Henrik Larsson, who he'd worked with at Feyenoord. He brought in a lot of good players, actually. And whereas we'd come through 3 years with Tommy, he'd only won one trophy, which was the 1995 Scottish Cup final, came so close to winning the league. And we had get used to this really exciting style of football, and Vim came in and kept that, but also did enough for us to win the league and to stop Rangers winning 10 in a row, which was phenomenal for us. The exact opposite of how we feel today, incidentally, but that's football. So I'm not overly, I don't care whether people have heard of him or not, but I know that they'll have heard them by the end of the season.
I like that. That's a good way of saying that. Like, because you've obviously seen how people are given and had that impact. Like, there was even look at Lubo. Everybody was like, "Oh, we can't be playing him. He's this 33-year-old guy who's past it, and he can't come."
Well, I mean, he came in. Joe Venglos brought him in. We lost Joe recently. Actually, he was a lovely, lovely man. Actually, and it was Dr. Joseph Venglos. He had won the European Championships actually with it was Czechoslovakia. It was at the time in 1976, I think, and the headlines in the papers again were Doctor Who, who is this guy? And we never won the league that year. But he brought Lubo Moravcik in, and he had 5 great years at the club. By the time we got to Seville, he was probably just at the end of his career. But he was a phenomenal football player. He made his debut, I think, in November 1998 and scored 2 goals. And it was Rangers we were playing. I think we beat Rangers 5-1 that day. And he could not believe the reaction he was getting within the stadium. And he was just... I remember being on a trip with him, actually. I don't know where we were. It was pre-season somewhere. We might have been in America, and the guys were out training. And I said, training? And he went, he says, I'm drinking 2 coffees and eating 2 bars of chocolate, he says, and then I might go for a run. And that was his approach to training, because it was magnificent. It was just so fit, so talented, both feet, just magnificent guy, and still a magnificent guy.
He looks the same as he did when he was playing for us.
And he came back recently, actually. We put on a game with Lubo's Legends against Henrik's Heroes, and we sold out Celtic Park for Celtic FC Foundation, and that was 2017. It was a remarkable week, actually. It was the Tom Rogic last-minute goal against Aberdeen in the rain at Hampden, and I had taken Henrik with me to Hampden, and I said to Lubo, do you want to... Because the game was the next day, this was the Saturday, our game was the Sunday. I says, do you want to come to the cup final? And he says, can you book me a round of golf in Edinburgh? I want to go and play golf. He says, I love Scottish golf courses. So we went to the Scottish Cup final, and he went and played golf. And they came back the next day, and as I say, we sold out the stadium for the game, and he's been great. He's always been great with us.
See, it's cool to know that, like, Lubo is that cool in real life.
Yes, he's exactly as you would expect him to be. He's just such a lovely man, really laid back, just takes it in his stride, and a really good guy.
Who are your heroes watching Celtic?
My hero growing up was Kenny Dalglish, and he left in August 1977. I was 10. I had just turned 10. I know I don't look old enough.
No, you don't look a day over 60.
I'm laughing, actually.
No.
So, and I just turned 10, and Kenny left, and I was heartbroken. I remember being heartbroken. And I remember for Christmas 1977, I got a Liverpool strip. And my mother had made this yellow 7 and stitched it onto the back of the red jersey, and I just love Kenny. I did. He came back as effectively a director of football type role. He ended up being manager for a period of time after John Barnes left, and I did some stuff with him in the 1980s as well, and we've got a dinner in New York, which we have every year, and hopefully if we can have that in October, then Kenny will come to New York with us and be the guest of honour, be the sporting guest of honour at this dinner in New York. And he's just a good guy. He's really, really... I got on really well with him because he's dead sarcastic, and I like that. He's just really, really funny guy, and so he was he remains my Celtic hero.
It's mental because you must have, like, you've actually seen all these different players come through, from the Dalglish to Hartson to Larsson. Even sorry, I've seen Hartson because he's putting a bit more time, but Larsson and now to the the trebles and stuff like that recently. Like, how do you think the treble team that compares to the teams of the past under Rodgers and stuff? Like,
I think it's difficult.
I'm always curious.
We do a lot of stuff with the Lisbon Lions, obviously, because they are our greatest ever team, and they're great people as well. And you know, I remember Jim Craig telling me, people ask him all the time, would Hearts and Sutton and Larson beat the Lisbon Lions? I don't think you can compare. I don't think you can compare generations. And I think the game's changed so much as well. You know, in many ways it was a harder game when people like Jim Craig and Bertie Auld played football. You know, people tended to get up and get on with it. Bobby Murdoch, who was the brains of that team, and I'm not old enough to remember it. I was born just after Celtic won the European Cup, but he was the engine in that Celtic team, and he was injured the day the European Cup final in 1967, and he was also the man of the match. He went into the game with an injury, and he was the man of the match. He was the guy that helped us. He never scored any of the 2 goals, but he was the guy that ensured that we would go on and win that. And I think that people, injuries are more prevalent in many ways now. People take, in many ways, longer to recover from injury. So I don't think you can compare like for like. But living through, as you did, as we all did, that time where we won 4 trebles, we'll never see that again. Those are phenomenally special times for this football club, and a real privilege for me as a Celtic supporter to have seen that. And I'm sure everybody who saw it will feel the exact same.
Did you ever think we'd see something like that? Like,
Never, because in my time watching Celtic, winning a treble's really, really difficult. You know, over the course of 38 games in the league, for example, the best team tends to come out on top. But we've saw so many slip-ups in cup and one-off cup matches. Inverness Cali, which was
I was there, man.
the end of John Barnes' time. I remember going to Liverpool and beating Liverpool at Anfield. So that was March 2003. And then I'm sure we had Inverness Cali the following weekend. It might have been the Cup. And we flew to Inverness, actually. I don't know why, but it's maybe because of the build-up of games. And I went up to cover the game. I was doing commentary for Celtic TV at the time. I went up to cover the game, and I'm sure that was a cup game, and Inverness Cali beat us. And Ross County beat us in a semi-final at Hampden as well, which was 2010. I think Neil had temporarily taken over from Tony Mowbray. So anything can happen in a one-off cup game. So to win a treble's something special. To win 4 consecutive trebles, there's no other team is going to do that again, ever.
So when you really think about it, like especially in what's happened the past year, you start realising, well, that was really a special team, that.
It was, and it makes the pain that we've went through in the past year even more painful, if you like, because we've had it was so good and everybody's so happy. But listen, I'll say it again, that's football.
Look, you know, everyone knows they won that because of COVID, let's be real about this, you know. so by the way, Rangers fans are going to hate this podcast. But I'll need to get somebody. I'll need to get somebody the Rangers Foundation on next, even the odds.
I can help you with that.
Because it's weird. It's funny for me because when I started doing it, I was you try to be very objective about things and stuff, and not sway too much. I've actually not really spoke about football that much in terms of Celtic and Rangers and stuff because I feel like you can't really. There's times where there's never really the right thing to say. That there's always going to be somebody that doesn't like what you say about it. You know what I mean?
I think that people, and you've got a profile now because of this and because of your presence. And I think my position is that people with a profile, if they're a football supporter, come and tell us what team you support. I'd rather people were up front with me. So I really admire the fact that you've declared yourself as a Celtic supporter. If you hadn't been a Celtic supporter and you'd asked me to come and do this, I would have did it anyway, if I'm honest with you. But it's a wee bit better for me that you're a Celtic supporter.
Well, that's nice to hear that it's the Celtic supporter isn't my main quality. That was me thinking it was. Well, listen, I've really enjoyed this conversation. I feel like it flew by and you were dead easy to talk to. And I hope that everything with the Celtic Foundation starts to pick up and you're able to do everything you want to do. And
thanks very much for having me, Kieran. I think that we rely on support. We rely on an opportunity to go and tell people what we're doing. So you provided that today, and I'm really, really grateful. Life's a lot easier for me when Celtic are winning. There's no doubt about that. But we will get there. We'll get this behind us. We'll recover from COVID. I'm fairly optimistic. I think the world will look better by the end of the year. I'm pretty positive about it. And hopefully we can get back to doing what we need to do and helping people the way that we did before this happened 15 or 16 months ago.
For sure. Actually, I was just thinking now, like, as we're talking, like, what did you see when I announced that I was doing this 1,000k challenge? We haven't really touched on that much, but were you thinking, what is this guy doing?
The number's frightening for me, right? We did a thing at work in April when it was the 30-day challenge, and I don't walk anywhere.
You and me both.
But I decided that we would walk. Everybody had to do something, and the plan was that there was a group of people at Celtic, and we would walk from Celtic Park to Lisbon.
Oh yeah.
So I thought I'll do 2 miles a day, which is a big effort for me. I know people will laugh at that, but I ended up doing 91 miles over the 30 days. I'd never walked that kind of distance in my life before, and I've no really slipped back to where I was. So for today, for example, I deliberately found a car park that was a mile away so that I can do another 2.5 miles today. So it gave me a 20-minute walk here. I'll have a 20-minute walk and back, and I'll maybe do a wee bit this evening when my son's at training. But for you to go and do 1,000 kilometres, which is in my head 625 miles, is phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. It's breathtaking. So well done.
It was one of the stupidest things I've ever done in my life.
I'm glad you did, though. I'm delighted.
It was great, and you doing all that walking is probably why you look so young, Tony. So there you go.
It's too late now.
But no, this is great. We should do it again sometime, and hopefully I can help out with the foundation in some way and help you keep losing money.
And we'll bottom out the Powerchair football team.
Hopefully next time you see me, I'm playing again for Celtic. So we'll see.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me.
No worries at all. That's us. Brilliant.